Greetings, vinyl community. The concept for today's video is what's his name? And the reason for that is that this is a video about albums featuring performers or contributors who appear under a false name. And I don't mean stage names like Captain Beefheart or Bob Dylan for that matter, but performers or contributors whose identities are hidden in the credits under a pseudonym. And this is sort of the game show edition of the vinyl community, where you see if you can guess the identity of the performer. And the first is an easy one. Goodbye, the final studio/live album from Cream, featured on the song Badge, rhythm guitar by L'Angelo Misterioso, the mysterious angel. Who is L'Angelo Misterioso? Who also co-wrote the song, but was not credited on this record. It's George Harrison, fellow who is actually the artist on the next record. George Harrison's Wonderwall soundtrack included guitar, credited to one Eddie Clayton, and in an amazing bit of reciprocity, Eddie Clayton is none other than the guitarist from the previous band who wrote the song Badge. Yes, it's Eric Clapton. And there are a lot of Beatle-related pseudonyms out there on various releases. And one of the most celebrated is on the Bonzo Dog Band's second album. This is the US edition that includes the song Urban Spaceman. And it is the song Urban Spaceman itself that is produced by one Apollo C. Vermouth. Well, I've given it away by the preamble that it's a Beatles-related pseudonym. Apollo C. Vermouth is none other than Paul McCartney, who produced the song Urban Spaceman for single release in the UK, and it became the title track on the US edition of their second album, which was titled The Donut in Granny's Greenhouse for its original UK release. The first solo album by Mike Herron of the incredible string band, Smiling Men with Bad Reputations. Got to get that full gatefold on there. On the song Warm Heart Pastry, there's a collective credit for guitar, bass, and drums by Tommy and the Bijou. Tommy and the Bijou, who could they be? Could Tommy be a clue? Yes, it could. Although it's not somebody named Tommy, it's Pete Townsend and Keith Moon. So it's half the Who, plus Ronnie Lane on the bass. So two Who's and a face. A face on the bass. Speaking of faces, here's one. That's Brian Eno's face on his album Before and After Science. And on a couple of tracks on here, there's a percussionist named Shirley Williams. Surely you know who Shirley Williams is. Why, it's surely none other than Robert Wyatt, playing percussion on a Brian Eno album. Shout out to Telegram Sam, who recently showed this album. Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up by Jeff Simmons. An associate of the artist who plays lead guitar. So Frank Zappa is credited as playing lead guitar, but the producer is Lamar Brewster, who also co-wrote the song Wonderful Wino and then wrote the song Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up. Well, Lamar Brewster is the same person as the Frank Zappa who played lead guitar. And of course, Wonderful Wino and Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up later appeared on Frank Zappa albums under his own name. But for some reason, he appeared credited with his real name as a performer, but as a producer and songwriter under a pseudonym. There may be a contractual reason for that. I don't know. I doubt it because this was on Zappa's own label. On the straight label, should show that. There's the straight inner sleeve, and there's the straight label. So Lamar Brewster is none other than Frank Zappa. And that leads to a Frank Zappa album. This is the British version of Chunga's Revenge with a different coloring from the more familiar bright red edition that we had in America. And this introduced the names. I said I wasn't going to do stage names, but these weren't stage names at the time. This really was a contractual issue where the performers couldn't be credited on the record, so the contributions are by the Fluorescent Leech and Eddie, who, with those names trimmed down to just Flo and Eddie, became, they became Flo and Eddie, but they were always Howard Kalin and Mark Volman of the Turtles, and at this point, members of the Mothers, having dropped the invention part. The Doors' fifth album, Morrison Hotel. Roadhouse Blues features harmonica by one G. Pugliese. Nice Italian boy, Giovanni Pugliese. Who could that be? Well, Pugliese was actually his father's real name, but the father changed his name to Sebastian, and his son Giovanni was John Sebastian. So the harmonica player on Roadhouse Blues, G. Pugliese, is none other than John Sebastian. I've actually shown this album and talked about the pseudonym before, but here it is, Carla Bley's Tropic Appetites, which includes tenor saxophone and percussion by an unidentified cat. There he is, unidentified cat. And there's actually a picture of the unidentified cat. There he is. And that cat in Spanish is a gato, is a clue that that's Gato Barbieri on the tenor sax and percussion for Carla Bley. Finally, Anthony Phillips, the original guitarist from Genesis, on several of his solo albums, features contributions from Vic Stench. Also, just the Vicar. Well, Vic Stench and the Vicar are the same person. And that person is none other than Anthony Phillips. So Anthony Phillips is appearing on his own records under a pseudonym. And that brings us full circle. That's 10 records featuring pseudonymous performers. Thank you very much for watching. Talk to you again soon. Be well. Bye-bye for now.